Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's talk about another entry here, this time based on one of your newer suggestions again. And this is, the reason I picked this one is because it has several specific traits that I love talking about within my videos. Number one, it has to do with a cryptid that is known for some very bad things, some very evil things. And those always makes things very exciting. I know just the other day I was talking about the Quailin and how that was a good change of pace, that it was a good creature that does very good things. It's known for having a great presence, and so at least that was done. But let's admit it, I mean, when you're talking about stuff that does bad things, it just makes it so much more exciting. Number two is the fact that it has a very specific location that you can go to this very day, and if you do so, you have a very good chance of running into that. I love when situations come across that, because rather than, let's say, pinpointing to who knows vague parts of the world, no, you can go to this spot here. As long as you go there, then you'll be able to come across a very, very good chance, in other words. And number three, it has to do with the fact that there's ways to protect yourself whenever you come across this cryptid and its bad things. So whenever that comes into play, it makes it so much better, because it makes it so much more realistic. So it just adds more realism, I believe, whenever that small factor is also there too. And so it has to do with this. You're looking at it, immediately you should get some tingling in your neck, because you can see that this thing is very, very frightful. It has to do with a cryptid known as the Eloko, but if you're talking about it in a plural sense, it's known as the Biloko. So let's go ahead, let's talk about all the information associated with this unique cryptid. So what is this Eloko? Well, it's a cryptid that's found in a very specific spot. As I mentioned earlier, you have to go to Central Africa towards the Congo area. There's going to be a place there called Central Zaïre, if I'm not mistaken. I was looking at some info on that, but it seems like that Zaïre was there a couple decades back. I don't know if it's still there today, but the whole point is essentially, as you're looking at this map, if you go there and then specifically go towards considered the darkest and densest parts of the rainforest, then you'll come across this thing. That is its homeland. That's absolutely where it lives. And the reason for this is because here's something very unique about this cryptid. It's a creature. It's a physical creature. It hunts, it smells, it sees. In other words, it's not a spirit, but it does contain the spirit of the ancestors that used to live there. So who knows how far back when, hundreds of years, maybe thousands, there were a group, a race of people that lived there that ended up dying out, but somehow, some way, their spirit in turn, I don't know if it changed into this creature, or if it evolved, or something else was already there and the spirit went inside it. Either way, those ancient ancestors now live in the bodies of these Eloko, or I'm sorry, these Biloko. And so that's how essentially it's like a 2-for-1. You have the current Biloko living, in this case, with the ancient spirits of their ancestors. So very, very fascinating information. More physical characteristics about this creature. It's about the size of a dwarf, maybe a little bit taller. Clearly you can see it's humanoid. It has no hair. In fact, it's considered completely hairless but for this. So obviously, being in the rainforest, and I mean, you and I mean, we've seen forest here, especially here in America, but I would imagine that the rainforests there in Central Zaire are something else entirely different. They're probably so dense that you would have to physically cut your way through any part of the rainforest to get through. So with so much leaves there, here are two unique things about this Eloko. Number one, it uses these leaves or this grass to dress itself, which makes sense, obviously, since there's so much proliferation of these leaves there. But number two, somewhere along, I guess, the thousands or hundreds of years, it changed into having the new leaves grow out of certain parts of its body. So I don't know if this is like a way to defend itself, or maybe more likely as a way to camouflage itself. But isn't that interesting? These leaves have now become part of the body itself, and they grow out of certain parts of the body. And I'm sure, like, if they cut the leaves or if they remove the leaves, it would be just as if you were removing something involving its skin. So very, very interesting stuff. And then more features about it. It has these piercing eyes. Its mouth, by the way, it's supposed to I can't remember what the term is, but it's the same thing that snakes do whenever they uh, widen their jaws to be able to eat much larger prey than itself. This creature, this Eloko, can do the very same thing. It can do that with its mouth, and this is why it's very bad. Its favorite thing to eat apparently is humans. Whether they're dead, whether they're alive, it doesn't matter. It hunts for these humans and it can eat them, swallow them almost whole. And here's why. So it loves humans because it loves hunting them within its territory. Apparently, it has a big grudge around all the humans that live, I don't know, close by, far away, who knows. But whenever something involving a group of people, or let's say one person, comes across its area there in central Zaire, then immediately it starts hunting them, and its ultimate goal is to be able to capture the human and then eat it outright. That's why you don't want to go necessarily hunting for this thing yourself, or hunting within any parts of that rainforest. Maybe you yourself, you're trying to get some food, you're hunting whatever kind of livestock or animals are there. Well, guess what? At the very same time, there's a good chance that you'll be hunted by this creature, by this Eloko, and you have to be very, very careful. The good news is, though, there's a telltale way of this creature announcing itself. It's almost like a foolhardy way. It doesn't make sense why it has it, but apparently it does, and it's to our advantage. It has these little bells that it carries around its body. Maybe it wears it on its waist, maybe it carries it on its neck, who knows. But if you hear these bells, which should be a unique circumstance, like where else would you hear bells? How would you expect to hear bells in the middle of a rainforest there in central Zaire? But if you hear these bells, then you know that there's an Eloko or maybe Sobailoko nearby, so you have to be very, very careful at that point. The good news, though, is that you can protect yourself. Remember, I was mentioning earlier, one of my favorite things about dealing with cryptids is being able to protect yourself from them. And here's how you do it. All you have to do is possess something like some kind of amulet that you carry around you at all times whenever you're in those parts of the rainforest. How you get this amulet, I don't know. I'm pretty sure the locals there, those that are more studied on these by Eloko, would have more knowledge of it. But if you can come across one and you happen to have to cross, let's say, those parts of the rainforest, do so. Like, get it, put it on your neck, put it on your wrists, whatever is the case, and then that way these by Eloko cannot be near you. Whatever that amulet does, there's this casting, there's this spell, there's magic involved. I don't know the exact details of it, but it's supposed to protect you at all times. And then once you're out of the rainforest, that's it. Then you're safe even more so. That, though, still seemed kind of eerie to me, because imagine that scenario. There you are having to cross point A to point B. You might run into these Eloko or Biloko, and when that happens, you carry this amulet. Nothing's going to really happen to you because it's protecting you, but at the same time, almost like there's a magic wall, like an invisible wall. Just beyond that border, there's these Biloko or the single Eloko waiting for you, like waiting for the right opportunity. They can't cross that invisible wall, but there they are with their piercing eyes, just waiting for this amulet to fall off, or maybe trying to do something to manipulate it to fall off. It's just like you see it in the movies whenever that happens, how people they come across something, they put it on, but then it magically falls off, and then that's when whatever it was that was bad, whether it's a ghost spirit, whatever, that's when it jumps at the opportunity. Same scenario here. I could totally imagine these Biloko doing things to make sure they can get this amulet off of you. Isn't that kind of eerie when you think about it? You think you're safe, but at the same time, you cannot let your guard down. But that's it. That's pretty much all the info tied to this unique cryptid located there again in central Zaire in the rainforest. So if anyone has any more info, anything else to share, anyone you heard any tales about these Biloko or individual Elokos, I tried to see if there were any specific current experiences. Anyone else have anything? You couldn't really do so. Closest I could come across was there was, I guess, what you could call a generic tale involving these Eloko, and it had to do with this. There was a hunter who apparently took his wife into one of those rainforests I don't know why. He was there specifically to try to do something. I think maybe to set up traps is what the idea was. Why he couldn't do it somewhere else, I have no idea. But there he was. He told his wife after he set up a, I guess, makeshift hut of some kind that he's gonna leave. He's gonna do whatever he needs to do with his traps. But while he's gone, he told her, do not open the door for anyone else other than me. No duh. But specifically, if you hear a bell, then don't do anything. Don't make your presence known in any way whatsoever, because he knew about the stories involving these by Loco. So there she was after he had left. And then sure enough, she started hearing this bell, this tiny little bell, the sound of it coming across the rainforest, first from far away it seemed like, and then closer and closer. Finally, it was there, it seemed like, whatever was making that bell noise right in front of the hut. And so that she didn't, of course, was doing nothing, but then she heard a voice. She described it as, it was described as a gentle voice asking her to let him in, like to let the Biloco in, or in this case there was just one, so there was an Eloko. And so here's another interesting about this Eloko. I was going to mention this earlier, but I don't know still if it's 100% fact, but apparently they have a very, very soothing voice, almost convincingly soothing voice. If you hear it, then it's supposed to sway you in whatever they're stating. So almost like a, I believe, what was his name? Saruman, if I'm not mistaken, from the Lord of the Rings movie. If you heard his voice, whatever he was telling you, it was supposed to sway you in some kind of magical way. But in this case, this was what happened to the poor woman. Hearing that voice, she opened the door. Sure enough, there wasn't a Loco there. It walked inside. It looked small. It looked innocent. It hadn't revealed its true presence just yet. And then when she offered him a banana as a gift, he refused, and in turn told her in a very sinister way, like, we don't eat bananas, we only eat human meat, and that he hasn't eaten for a long time. And then that's when he instructed her to give her a piece of her arm, like to extend it forward. She, of course, could not refuse whatever he was stating because of his soothing voice, because of the I guess the magical nature behind it. And then that's when he began eating her. Like, he began eating her alive, first with his arm and then moving elsewhere. And the way the story ends, this hunter, once he came back from his trip wherever he went, that's when he just found her bones lying within the hut. So pretty sinister stuff. So again, this is not a bad good creature you want to come across. It's a very bad one, so you have to be careful out there. So alright everybody, thanks again as always. Take care.